let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. You look so angry, but it's got kind of a cool vibe to it.
Am I the only one, or do you have this with other people?
Yeah, generally everybody.
Okay.
But they at least look more pleasant.
What bothers me is when two of y'all start talking. Because when two of y'all start talking, I know this could possibly go downhill fast.
So I was like, do you think Dr. Evans will get up on that volcano? And then she says, go!
Well, I am so excited to welcome to our Unbound podcast today a personal friend and a ministry friend, Phil from RightNow Media. You have been a great asset to the kingdom of God and our ministry as well, so welcome.
I appreciate you having me here. This is fun.
Well, I have learned quite a bit from you just being on the road with you as we have been. A lot of folks may not be fully acquainted with RightNow Media. So why don't you talk a little bit about what RightNow Media is?
Well, I think the easy on-ramp is just for people to understand RightNow Media is the largest streaming library of discipleship resources in the world. And so we started about 40 years ago. That's one of the things people don't know about us is that we started in 1977 making missionary documentaries. And then helped raise funds for missionaries till about 1988 when we launched our first Bible study curriculum for teenagers. And so from there, produced 2 different Bible studies a year. We did one for adult and one for youth until about 2004. I joined in 1999, and we were doing the Bible studies, but we also had to kind of supplement our income in those days.
Okay.
We did capital fundraising videos. That was kind of a time for church boom, and churches were growing and wanting to have building campaigns. And so we jumped in and we did videos. Videos cost a lot of money to do back then. And so there wasn't Apple and Final Cut Pro and some of those different technology things that there were. So we were brought in to do capital fundraising videos. So that's what I started out doing, is capital fundraising videos and traveling the country, helping churches, enlarge their buildings. So we did that. About 2004, we started to increase the number of Bible studies that we did to about 7 different Bible studies a year. And then we kind of looked around and saw the changes that were happening in technology, saw that, movie distribution, TV distribution was all going to change, and said, what if we laid the digital tracks into the church that would be the next, way to reach people for Christ. And so we built the first iteration of RightNow Media, streaming library, copied it off of Netflix, and kind of took all the studies we'd ever made and put it in there, and then started working with different publishing partners and adding different content to the library. So that's kind of a broad overview of RightNow Media and what we do.
So Netflix helped you out a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're looking at what's going to be the next big thing, people are like, what's the next big thing? I mean, what are your consumption habits? Like, where do you go to find out what's relevant, to see the... And so, in some ways, the church, Christians, how can we follow consumer habits and see where people are going to consume media or to get their news or really anything, and how can we create content that goes into those areas? And so...
so you kind of kingdomized the technology, huh?
I mean, it really was. I mean, we kind of looked around and kind of thought, well, I mean, if we have to go this other direction, we're going to be out of business. On our 7 Bible studies a year, we're not going to be sustainable long term if we're having to go through another distribution platform. And so we were like, hey, nobody else is doing this. So we jumped in about 2011, launched the first iteration of RightNow Media, which I look around and it's kind of crazy to think that like Disney launched in, I think, like 2018, their first streaming library. So it was pretty early on that we kind of jumped in. But one of the big things was we made youth curriculum for years. So when we first launched, it was kind of like, who are the first early adopters going to be for this new platform? Well, it was going to be the guys in their 20s who were leading youth ministry, and they could get one curriculum or they could get our last 5-10 years worth of youth curriculum for roughly the same price per year. So those were the early adopters that got us probably our first 1,500 churches or the first 2,000 churches.
Well, you were doing some serious market analysis there to get on the cutting edge early on.
I think our whole leadership team we were all about 28 to 32, somewhere in that realm, and we didn't know what we didn't know, and it was probably good that we didn't realize what we were doing, because we just kind of jumped in as like, hey, this just is where things are moving. Let's jump in. So we turned off DVDs one day, and we turned on the streaming platform another day. We went from selling 3 different youth studies and 3 different adult studies to, hey, we've got a streaming library, and kind of changed everything in one day. So we were in the red for about 6 months, and then we bumped up into the black. So it was kind of like the Lord really showed favor for us during that time period. And again, I don't think we realized kind of how much we were skirting with potential death at the time, but
well, death turned into destiny. So you're in good shape now. You started out pretty early with them, fairly early, in 1999, right? So I'm sure back then you had to do a little bit of everything. So tell me some of the things that you had to put your hands on back then.
Well, I mean, I started out being the one guy that was doing capital fundraising videos. So, I mean, that was the focal point of my job. So it was a one-man crew. So I would load up one bag full of with a big beta cam and, big tripod. And so it's me kind of managing these big things and just being plumped down and starting to work with different pastors and church leaders. And everybody's a little tense around building campaigns. Mm-hmm. So I kind of learned how to navigate some of that church tension early on. And, half the people on a church campaign don't want you there when you show up, and half the people really want you, and there's usually a little back and forth, even when you're dealing with the congregation.
Did you raise the money? That's the question. Did you raise the money?
I see a lot of those big buildings as I drove by that got built, so okay. I don't know if they're still in debt or not, but they did. It did help out. But then, I mean, we really... so it was editing, filming, doing everything. And one of the things with RightNow Media, we have a video team right now that's got about 16, 17 different members. And we've kind of embraced that everybody can do everything. Everybody can edit. Everybody can shoot. Everybody. And it kind of goes back to those early roots of everybody being able to do everything. And that way, it just kind of fuels, I think, our team creatively, and allows people to kind of a little bit work for, editing a project, but then produce a project, then film a project. So we have a long tenured staff of, a lot of people have been there 20 years. A lot of people have been there, 10 plus years. So,
sounds like you're paying them real good if they stand.
I think they would debate you on that, but I think we've created a great culture of creativity, of collaboration, and opportunity. And I think that's what everybody kind of being able to do a lot of different things does, is create opportunity.
Well, that's great, because you're developing resources and talent, and you're maximizing what you have. So back then, in the old days of RightNow Media, you said you were going from here to there. What did you go to interesting places back then? How was it back then, travel?
If you're thinking like the backwoods of Colorado and stuff, they were fun places, but we really didn't start going. We did some missions. So the missions trips would be in Honduras, and the mission trips would be in Sudan, so we did some of those, but most of them was just, can you get to those places domestically that represent, like our youth series? We would not want it to feel like it was filmed. We're located in Dallas, Texas, North Dallas, and so we didn't want to feel like it was, based in Dallas or based in Texas or the South. So we did a lot of traveling to LA and get a kind of a West Coast feel. We did a lot of filming along the East Coast. So like our youth series would have kind of a different flavor to it. So always trying to make it feel like it was national and not regional. It was a big emphasis point. So, but we didn't really start traveling until we launched kind of our Book of the Bible series, which came out. The first one we tried was 2012, somewhere around there. And that's been our most popular series. And that really featured adding in locations and different things like that. So.
Well, I've been part of these, a number of these studies and books of the Bible in particular. I remember we were in Hawaii doing Revelation. That had some scary points to it, because I remember we climbed up this mountain, and some of our staff was trying to talk me out of climbing up this mountain. I was being semi-threatened, actually, as I recall.
I believe the whole time that you wanted to be on top of that. It was a volcano.
It was a volcano,
That's right. And I knew you wanted to go up there.
Yes.
But they were trying to hold you back.
They were trying to hold me back. But here's what happened. Now that we're discussing this, here's what happened. I was being requested not to go. There's one particular staff member in particular who made a big deal about this. Yeah. I won't name them right now, but they were really, really Christian arguing about why I shouldn't go. But what was fascinating was standing on top of this volcano and looking down and seeing stuff is still red hot. Mm-hmm. After how many years was that volcano?
I think it was 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And it was still red hot. I mean, that was just, you see it on TV, but to actually look down and see it. But here's the thing about your crew, talk about, since I was up there, they decided to maximize the location with my presence. So they would ask me, well, can you go a little closer over there? Can you go a little closer over there? Do you know what happened if I would have fallen into that thing? I would have been roasted. But your people, because they had to get the shot, just kept encouraging me to take risks. But that's okay. But this thing about picking locations tied to projects, the strategy of the location to the project, how does that work?
Well, let me go back a little.
Okay.
Because it kind of all ties in a little bit to like the strategy behind Book of the Bible projects. So when we're looking at these projects, the whole thing started out with, what are we going to do next? What project are we going to do next? So we're sitting around the table thinking, okay, like how do we engage people at the next level in their small groups? And we had just finished some book studies and some Christian living type studies that we developed. And somebody just said, the question that I always get when I ask, what do we study next, is I just want to go study a book of the Bible. And it created this barrier because there were no resources, video-based resources, that walk through a book of the Bible. Which the problem was, it turned the small group leader into like a preacher or a pastor. And they felt like this huge weight of like having to walk through a book of the Bible. And oftentimes that small group would break up and dissolve. So we're like, if we can solve what do we study next? A book of the Bible. Now can we have a small group resource where there is somebody like yourself or, Matt Chandler or Jenny Allen or somebody like that can walk through the book of the Bible and teach them, then that small group facilitator stays a small groups facilitator. And so we launched our first one, but it was like, okay, we're going to need to walk through 12 sessions. And normally we'd only done 6. So how do we do this in a way, one, that the talent, the teacher, won't immediately reject us? Because normally the way we were doing things, 12 sessions would take maybe a week, maybe a week and a half. And that wasn't going to be sustainable. So it was like, okay, well, let's go to them and find where they're at and use the locations where they're at. And so we started with Francis in the book of James, Francis Chan. Mm-hmm. And he was based in San Francisco. So we were like, okay, we can use San Francisco. So let's take the major themes from James. There's 12 major themes, so 12 sessions. And then let's try to find something thematically that kind of matches. So it's that artistic kind of tension between, okay, the reality is I have time that's short. I only get 3 days, and I have to be in his location. And so then how do I find locations that match thematically with what? So we looked at the Museum of the Art, the Golden Gate Bridge, and we try to be like, okay, how did this fit? The Redwoods, and then, okay, let's put them into these different locations, and, have them teach through 12 minutes, because our research says that, a small group really only wants to watch about 10 to 12 minutes of video. They
a little short attention span when it comes to that, huh?
They want to talk. At the end of the day, groups, when they get together, they want to talk and they want to relate to one another. But they want something that tees them off and something that moves them forward. So we, filmed those first sessions, and then it turned into, okay, well, how do you do an intro? How do you do an outro? And started looking at, okay, what are the production value that's available? Because when you look at within 10 to 15 seconds, you can tell if a video is made with quality or if it's not. So we wanted everybody to know these are made not in a studio. These were made on location, and that these are good videos. And so it's what are the production values that's available? At the time, they just released gimbals, which allow you to kind of do steady cams and walks and talks. It allows us to float the camera without having tracks. And so we just kind of landed on the highest production value we could afford at that time, which was gimbals. And because we wanted people to watch it and say, this is a little different than the other Bible study that I've watched. This is a little different from those other guys' Bible studies. And it's on location, so it feels immediate. It feels like it's made for today, and it's kinetic. You know, when you watch a TV show today, everything moves. It's like a film in the fact like it's filmed with all the same technology, and the camera doesn't stay static. Everything moves. If you go back to like the mid-90s, the camera stayed static because it was made fast. And so, but how can we bring that to a Christian discipleship video was kind of how we that's what we wanted to do. And so the book of James did well when we released it. It quadrupled the viewership of anything else that we did. But we didn't know, is this Francis Chan? Is it name recognition? Or is it production value? Or is it length? Or is it just the book of James is popular? And it is popular, so for people to study. So then we did the same thing in a different location with J.D. Greer doing the book of Ephesians. And it's like, okay, well, it didn't do quite as well as James, but it did 3 times better than everything else we'd done. So maybe we have something. So we jumped in. We did Jonah with Eric Mason. And then I think you were the next one because we did 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John here in Dallas. I think you were next. So that was, you know.
Wow, I didn't know.
So you were really early on.
I didn't know I'd gone back that early with you. So you just went through a lot there. Just how things change over time. You know, when we first started out, there were cassette tapes. We had cassette tapes, and people would get the cassette tapes, and we'd stand, and then you had 8-track stuff. You had stuff moving. How to keep up with the movement so you are relevant and fresh without compromising what you're trying to communicate. Is there a tension there in terms of relevancy and content that you have to balance?
It's interesting in terms of like, I don't think we've struggled necessarily with that tension in terms of, you know, kind of balancing relevancy with truth. As much as, because we've just jumped in and said, here are the core beliefs that we're going to have. And we set that into like a firm, these are theologically what we believe. Okay. But then it's the technology. Let's just use the coolest stuff. Like, let's go and grab whatever technology we can. Let's upgrade the cameras. Let's look at what gimbals you have. You want to use a probe lens, you use a probe lens. You want to jump up and, whatever technology is available, let's use that to make the best thing that we can. Because people like quality. People they want to watch things that are good. They want to see things that inspire them. They want to emotionally connect with what's there, and they want it to be what they're used to.
So let's talk about that a minute, because one of the things that you often hear about Christian films is that they're often cheesy or boring, or it was not high quality when it was made, even if the content is okay. But what you're saying is we want great content, and we want to deliver it in a great way.
That's right.
You're actually having to keep up with a number of things at the same time to make sure you're staying ahead of the curve in what the consumer is getting.
Yeah. And that's where you start to look at just how much are you engaged with the trends in terms of media and culture to be able to deliver things at a high quality. If you go back and just having followed some of the Unbound things that I've seen and heard about in stories from you guys' trips, I mean, you're going through and you're seeing, what was the technology of the day? I mean, is it the murals that you see? Is it the artwork that you see? I mean, those were the ways that people communicated in those days. And so then you get the printing press, and people are like, how do you get the printed word out? And then you're translating the Bible, and you're moving things forward. And so then it turns into the radio. and then it turns into cassette tapes, and then now you get into the CDs, and we're just the next step in that, which is the streaming media. And I would say like VHS tapes. I think there was maybe a 20-year run on VHS tapes when they were popular. That's what people used.
Right.
I think there was a 15-year run on DVDs. I mean, is streaming going to be a 10-year run? Is streaming going to be a 15? What's going to be the next thing? And you start looking at how AI is affecting things now, and it's that new technology. How is that going to be? How are Christians going to use that and engage that for the kingdom? And because they need to be there. They need to be involved in it. They need to understand it because it's the new technology of what our age is going to absorb.
So let me ask a question right there. How do you, if you were speaking to a group of pastors who needed to develop a philosophy of using technology in their churches and not running away from it, because sometimes the church can get nervous about it and not take full advantage of it, to their detriment if the congregation is seeing all of this great stuff that they're not offering. Balancing taking advantage of it and not so being committed to the culture that you're losing something in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. The inevitability of technology just needs to be embraced by the church or by the leaders of the church. I would say to a pastor who's sitting there is like, are you watching, if you wouldn't subscribe to RightNow Media because of its technology and the streaming technology, are you watching Netflix? Are you using this on your own personal level? Because you are, then the technology ought to be available for your church. And are you using it in a redemptive way? Or is it being used in a redemptive way that you can, integrate into the ministry that you have? Ultimately, if your congregation is there and the church isn't there, in terms of, then you're leaving an area of their lives vacant of Christ. So, while it has to be done in a redemptive way and it has to be done with high quality, are you willing to concede an area of a person's life to the devil?
Well, that's interesting because I remember when radio first came out and Satan is the prince and power of the air, that there was this resistance against radio because Satan would be using that to communicate rather than how do we sanctify the tool so that we make it useful for the kingdom.
But I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay, tell me a story.
The first time I ever heard Tony Evans preach. So I was 16 years old, and I had to drive my grandparents' car from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Dallas, Texas, because they were moving to Dallas, Texas. And at the time, it only had an AM radio in that car. And I don't know what station you were on, but I had to drive it because my grandfather couldn't drive that far, 11-hour drive. So I started just searching the channels. And I heard some guy preaching, and he was good. So I just sat
Keep talking.
I just sat there the whole time listening to him. I was like, who is this guy? And then it was like, oh, this is Dr. Tony Evans out of Dallas. I'm like, well, I'm from Dallas. And so then then I started asking people in my church, have you ever heard this guy, Tony Evans? They're like, of course we've heard of Tony Evans. And so anyway, but that was the first time I did, was listening to you on the radio.
And you were 16 years old?
I was 16 years old.
You're making me feel real old right now, but that's another story. Okay. Well, now, going back to these different sites that you go to and how you choose them, you even go to multiple countries. Like you got something with Christine Kane, I think, where you're doing multiple countries. Tell me
we're doing
about
the Footsteps of Paul. Will be the next series we do. This was her idea, so she called us, and I think in the Christian world, maybe RightNow Media is known for being a little non-traditional, which I kind of like. And so she called up and was like, I've always wanted to do a study on the journey of Paul, the journeys of Paul.
Okay.
And so where we actually go and teach about the journeys from the different countries that we're in. So I was like, if you're good to go, it's going to be a long trip. So it's a 14-day trip that we're going to do here in a few weeks, where we're going to go to Antioch, we're going to go to Ephesus, we're going to go to Thessalonica, we're going to go to Philippi, we're going to go to Athens, Corinth. We'll end up we'll go through Malta, we'll end up in Rome and Italy. So it'll be a fun trip. And I mean, I think
now you're on this trip, right?
I'm on this.
You're
trip.
leading this trip, right?
Well, we got, my role here is more of has now become less hands-on and more
oversight.
Okay. And so we've got a producer, Josh Holden, who's
meaning you're the boss.
Well, in some cases, I got a boss that makes who I have to get approval from, Brian Mosley.
Yeah.
But
well, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
The elephant in the room when it comes to my history with RightNow Media is simply called B-roll.
That's right.
B-roll. This is where you invite us, but basically force us, but invite us to be filmed, not doing teaching, but what do you call? Give me the formal definition of B-roll.
Well,
what's the industry definition of B-roll?
Well, there used to be, back in linear days, I'm going way too deep here, probably in the weeds.
Go right ahead.
There used to be, in linear editing, you would have your A-roll. So your A-roll is your teaching. So whatever that baseline that you would have is your A-roll. So that would be you reading the Bible, you teaching, those type of things. So you lay down your A-roll. And then on top of that, you would put, because it had to be linear put on top, you would have your B-roll, which would be your accompanying shots. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is with the B-roll is to, one, icebreaker for the audience, so that while you got to put yourself put the hat on of I'm sitting here in the home, I'm watching this with a group of people. So somebody's got to get the chips and dip. Somebody's got to, we're sitting down, somebody's coming out of the bathroom. They had already started. So there needs to be some kind of introduction that gets you into the study. So it's well, what do we do? Again, the tension of time, with the speaker, the tension of you're on location, you're out of location that sometimes isn't so the easiest thing to do is shoot B-roll with the teacher. But you also set up the environment that you're in and thematically set up what you're trying to do. So that's and oftentimes the parts without you, we have while you're teaching, somebody's out getting environmental shots and some of the different close-ups that we edit in. So then once you finish teaching, I think because it's at the end, when you feel like you're done teaching, it's you want to walk off and then we're hey, we got to shoot B-roll. It just feels a little worse.
Oh, it's more than a feeling. It's a little bit more than a feeling, because I think it's cruel and unusual punishment sometimes. Because
I think what looks good, you look so angry while you're shooting B-roll, but it's got kind of a cool vibe to it.
Oh, you want me to look angry?
Has this smirk of I really don't want to be here. But you hold your face in a cool way. That's
am I the only one, or do you have this with other people?
Yeah, generally everybody.
Okay.
But they at least look more pleasant. They look happier.
I'm glad you informed me for any future projects. I'll try to look a little bit more pleasant. I didn't know I was looking angry and mean and unchristian and all of that.
You look Christian, but you look
angry Christian.
You look
irritated
you
Christian.
Could take somebody down.
I mean, because much of your B-roll is walking.
It is
walking.
Well, you want to have
walking.
You want to have movement, because if you're not moving, there's nothing for the camera to move. And again, we're looking for camera movement because that matches what's out in the culture today. So that's why we have you. We don't want you to be static, because nothing is static, and we have a lot of you static when you're standing and teaching. So that's one of the things that if we were to add more camera movement while you're teaching, then the shoot would take longer, and then we'd have to stop and start more, and then you would have longer teaching segments, or it would take longer to film your teaching segments.
Do you ever add extra B-roll just in case? Because some of those walkings that I've done seem to be thrown in ideas that had nothing to do with the original walking. There's
some guys who get ambitious while they're shooting their B-roll, and they get a lot of really good shots, or the location is really cool. They want to, try out a lot of different things. So we do try to I do kind of try to keep a watch. And you've seen this where I'm hey man, let's wrap it up, because.
Well, what bothers me is when two of y'all start talking. Because when two of y'all start talking, I know this could possibly go downhill fast.
Well, I would say, let's go back to the volcano.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there, and I get a little I got a little guy in my ear who's just like, hey, you think we can get Dr. Evans on top of that volcano? And I'm like, I think he'll do it. But let me work on this a little bit. So I was like, hey, Carla, do you think Dr. Evans will get up on that volcano? And then she says, well, let me go see. And then we start inching closer. And then she's like, let me test it out. And at that moment, I turned, I believe I turned to Josh. And I was like, yeah, Josh, we got him. Because if she gets up there, there's no way he's not getting up there. I never
knew about that conversation. Are you kidding me?
No.
You actually went to her and I am never going to do another Bible study with y'all ever. See, that's why you can't trust these Christians, because they go behind your back and work your family against you.
I am, at my core, a video guy.
Yeah, evidently. So. Unbelievable. Okay,
there was opposition. There was opposition.
Yeah, there was. Now, I remember the opposition.
But it wasn't from Carla.
No, I know it wasn't. I know where it is from. So. but that is, I'm digesting this, Phil, because you're talking to my people. Okay, all right, well.
And I was sitting there one time, we were in Sedona.
Okay, you're remembering too much stuff. Go ahead.
We were in Sedona, and we were driving out on a Jeep. It was like a 2-hour Jeep ride. And you were just like, where are we going? Where are you taking me? How do you find these places? And then we asked you to stand on a cliff.
A cliff, right.
And you were like, I'm fine. Because you're not afraid of heights at all.
No, I'm not.
But everybody else from TUA was afraid of heights for you. And so they were just like, okay. So we were trying to find angles to make the drop-off look steeper than it actually was, because anyway, so we're always putting you in
high-risk situations.
But you're game.
Yeah, I'm somewhat of a risk taker, and there are interesting places that we've gone, and that's great. But sometimes you want B-roll in very very uncomfortable places, and I'm thinking about Baltimore. Mm-hmm. We did a study. Which study was that in Baltimore?
Yeah, that was the Gospel of John.
The Gospel of John, part one.
Yeah.
Okay. We're in like a blizzard. I mean, it is freezing. There is snow everywhere, and you want B-roll. It is freezing out there. So does sympathy come into this at all?
You look so good. You had like on this trench coat, and you had on your hat, and you were just like, walking down the street.
No, I was cold. That's what you saw. That's what you saw.
But it looked good. And you know what? That's the only study we've ever filmed in the snow.
And I'm supposed to be happy about that? She mean Christmas.
It makes it very distinct.
Oh, my
We were in the
goodness.
clock tower.
Remember
the clock tower?
Yeah, when I was doing these, were you outside or were you inside?
Oh, I was outside.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm not suffering alone here. They got me walking across the street, and can you go here further? And can you?
The funny thing is, in fact, one of the camera guys here this year, he was in the submarine with you.
Okay, that's another thing. But go ahead.
We were in the submarine, and you walked out, and it was in the snow, so you walked out of the submarine, and we just needed one more shot of you coming back out, and so you just started going down the ramp, and he's like, Dr. Evans, one more shot. And you just kept going, you just kept walking. You kept walking. You were not going to turn around.
I didn't hear him.
Yeah, you didn't hear him.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. Well, one more shot does come up a lot.
Yeah.
Now here's the hard part. Now that was a single event, but here's where I get the biggest semi-struggle is when y'all have made a mistake in capturing something on the teaching. Mm-hmm. And you notice I said y'all. Mm-hmm. Capturing something on the teaching. And you want a redo, not of the sentence or the word, but the whole teaching. Now, that's only happened 2 times, I think, in our history, so it hasn't happened much. But that's a painful situation to hear. How often does that happen where you got to send the teacher back to the drawing board for the whole thing?
I would say there's a lot of teachers that it's best to do 2 takes with. Just because the familiarity with what they're saying, they need to kind of work through the second time. The second service is better than the first service.
Okay.
So sometimes we just always do 2 takes with a lot of different teachers.
I didn't know that was something that you do regularly.
There's a lot of times if there's a lot of atmospheric sound, then we'll be like, okay, there's too much noise to know how to like go back and pick up that many. So it's just better to get a second take for audio purposes so that you can have at least variations to edit from. So that's one of the other reasons. A lot of it, like the first time we ever asked you to do a complete second take, we hadn't worked together very much. It was with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. So you were polite to me then. You didn't quite let me know your feelings on doing the second take. But I would say we were at the Pecan Lodge here in Dallas, and we had audio problems. So it was on us completely. So there was a little fuzz in the microphone, and we just needed, for safety, to do a second take. And you were like, you need to do a second take? It's like, yeah. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. But then he's like, you leaned in and you're like, I'm gonna mix it up for you a little bit. I was like, okay. You replaced all of the illustrations. You made all of the same points, and you changed the illustrations. I've never had that before.
Well, I wanted to enjoy the process of something I had to do, so I said, let me come up with something creative here.
Yeah.
And there was another. I'm trying to remember. There was another situation where it was a little awkward on the B-roll.
I know what it is.
What is it?
The Liberty Bell.
Oh, okay.
Because we had gotten permission to film it for the Liberty Bell,
Yep.
but that permission wasn't given to us from either the right person or it hadn't been communicated down to the action. And they just started yelling at us. I
remember that.
It was... I've not been as frustrated on a shoot just because we had permission and we had emails with permission.
And didn't it start kind of raining out there that day,
oh, yeah,
too?
And it was raining.
We had the rain.
But it's just awkward. I mean, you're just there with – I'm here with Tony Evans, and I'm filming, and I've gotten permission, but then these people were very rude. And,
they were.
But at the same time, I understand that they're doing their job and you see one person doing it, but we did have permission, but it didn't get communicated.
Now, you pull this off with a lot of different talent. You talked about the fact that you have people who can do a multiplicity of things. Talk to me about the critical role of the support talent to production.
Oh, yeah.
And how that works and how critical that role is.
You know, ultimately, the way I look at creativity, when I look at just creativity in general, is that people have individual thoughts. Like creativity comes from the individual. It's an expression of their experiences, what they're good at, their talents, their skills, their perspective. And so one of the things by spreading the load and not just having, a group mentality or a meeting mentality where you vet things all through. I try to assign things specifically to people to give them an opportunity to express themselves. Now, within the boundaries of you're creating a book of the Bible, or we're like the overall content team from RightNow Media sets like, we're going to make a study on this, and this is generally how it's going to work. And this is what it's generally the format. But other than that, go run with it. Like, go creatively, like, what could you do if you were given, like, we've got a series coming up with, on 2 Thessalonians with Ben Stewart, who's at a Passion City Church in D.C. So it's 2 Thessalonians. Well, we did 1 Thessalonians in Miami with him. What are we going to do for 2 Thessalonians? So it's assigned to one of our producers, and it's like, where would you want to film it? What would you want it to look like stylistically? How are you going to, film it in such a way that it is engaging, and then pitch it back to us? But then can we surround him with a group of people who maybe have done it before, done it a lot of times before, or really good at audio, who are really good at graphics, and take all the other talents and put that around that idea and support it. But one of the best things that we've found creatively for our team is like, okay, well, that person, you supported him in this situation. Now it's your turn. Now you're leading up a project, then they come and support you. So the mutual support within our team, because everybody can kind of do everything and wear a different hat and express themselves, has been just a huge benefit to us. And it's not typical. I mean, the typical production team has, these are the editors, these are the audio guys, these are the producers, these are the camera operators, and we don't work that way. It's that you may be working audio one day, you're going to be working camera the next, and you're going to be producing. Well, when you're producing, you're going to need some really good guys to run camera and run audio to make sure that you have a great product.
Is this talent readily available? Is the group that you can choose from, the pool that you can draw from, is it a vast pool today? You know,
it's growing. And I would say the other thing is it's diversifying. Like the film and video world was a white male dominated industry for years and years. But we are seeing more people of color and more women go into it more in the last 10 years than we ever have before. Okay. So there's a diversity that's coming. There's more people being trained in it, but even different schools, like if they go to college for this, because it's not something that you absolutely have to go to college for. If you've trained and you jump in and you just work, you can get the. But the colleges have different philosophies. There's certain colleges that are like, no, we're going to be like a traditional film school, and so you're going to be taught to be a cinematographer. You're taught the individual roles, and then there's other schools that are like, no. I mean, you got to be a jack of all trades.
That's the school you want to draw from.
That's the one the people have come from out of those schools. That's where we go.
So if a pastor today.
Now, I would say one thing before you go into pastors.
Okay.
Another pool to look for is the overworked church media guy.
Okay.
Because at a lot of churches,
he's ready to bail. Is that what you're saying?
Well, a lot of churches, you've got, and I'm going to say like attendance of 200 to 500. There's one guy on staff. The pastor has an idea on Thursday that he wants implemented for Sunday. Then that church media guy on Sunday has to video so he's got to work all day. He's got to work all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday he has off. But then Tuesday the pastor turns around with another idea and wants to implement it. So it's just this continual and that's hard to do. And that guy's got to run the church service, run the slides, get the PowerPoint ready, get the pro presenter ready, and then he's got to turn around and then film all the videos, edit the videos, and get them presented. So for a while, that's where we
you actually rob churches. Is that what I just heard you say?
No, robbing churches. That's strong. That's strong.
Okay,
but there's people in this room that may fit that profile.
No, but you will intentionally look at that guy in that church who's in that situation and say, would you like to work for RightNow Media? You would do that.
I mean, I am going to go to church.
You're doing it in a Christian way.
I'm going to go to church job posting sites, and I'm going to advertise RightNow Media on church places where church staff gets hired.
Okay. Would you ever see a guy and go to the guy and say, would you consider? Would you ever do that? Have you ever done that?
I have never done that.
You have never done that. Have you ever thought about doing that? Okay, confession is good for the soul. But if you have a pastor who wants to build or, let's say, update his church to the new world of technology, what are some things you would say are critical to be relevant today in this upgrade or construction for reaching our contemporary world?
That's a great question, and I would say, who are you? Like what do you want your church to be? Because I think some of the most beautiful churches are stained glass windows, and a certain type of person is going to be drawn to that traditional liturgical church. And there's a place for that. And does that fit the pastor? Because not every pastor is a contemporary pastor. And so, there's, again, if art is really there and the church building and the church space is really there to bring people together and to emotionally connect people into worship, then you need to define what type of worship you're going to want to have and then lean into that. And don't lose what you have to try to go get something different just because it's what everybody else or what's popular. Because it all comes full circle. I mean, we see, a bunch of the, Gen Alpha, Gen Z coming in, and they want more traditional church. And they're looking for, a pastor with a little gray in their hair that knows what's, who can really advise, and more of a wisdom-based approach than, really.
You were looking at my hair when you said that. I just want you to know that.
I've got some right there, too. I lose it, so I'd rather have gray than lose it.
So we have this project from the Urban Alternative called Unbound, just like this podcast, where we're tracking the transmission of the Bible from one location to another, and the social, political, economics, and personality dynamics that facilitated that. And we're going back in history to look at that and how the Bible was, as we talked about earlier, how it was communicated, how it was the stylized way it was produced then, and some of the most magnificent artistry that you see in some of these historical documents and printing. And then we went to a parchment maker to see how that animal skins became part of this process. And it's fascinating to watch this journey. You are part of the legacy or the continuity of the journey of communication of the Bible and its biblical truth. Is there anything that, when you look at this history, that you can glean from, even though it's not the same technology, it does have something of value that you say, this is worth sustaining or updating because it still can be made relevant for our audience today?
First of all, it's so humbling just to hear that I would be ever, like, what we do in RightNow Media would be even considered with some of those different things. I mean, that's, I see how we're part of that lineage, but it was never in our mind to start there, or whenever we're making a project, I don't think we feel like we're going that way. But, when we start to look back on those things, I mean, great art is great art, and it's meant. There's a quote, and it's from a guy named David O. Taylor, and he said, sin corrupts God's vision, and the artist is there to restore it.
That's a classic quote.
I was sitting there a little bit like, okay, like if that's what we're trying to do, is like, it's if the artists, like when you look at, you're in the Sistine Chapel and you're sitting there and it's like, there's no way not to be emotive when you're in the Sistine Chapel. I mean, part of it is the history that's there, but part of it also is, you look forward, and it's so funny to me. The one thing in the Sistine Chapel is like, everybody's looking up and you're looking at, but then the rapture is right in front of you. And it's like the Michelangelo really wanted you to understand, like, the next life. Like when you're just standing there, what you're facing is the rapture. It's Christ, bringing us all back. And I just think it's interesting that, we're distracted from the main thing by looking up sometimes.
Oh, that's an insightful. Yeah.
But you're also looking up at the different images in the Bible stories. But the main thing is Christ's return, and so just the genius behind that. In terms of how Michelangelo was thinking when he designed it.
Next time I go to the Vatican, I'm gonna stare at it a little differently.
It's just fascinating when you look at, but then you look at the Pietà, and it's just, and so you start looking at, and then the great works of just, these Bibles that you open, and they're ancient, and they're like, I love the King James Version just because of the, I'm an old theater nerd, and so who did plays in high school and stuff like that.
So you like Shakespeare.
So I like Shakespeare.
Okay.
So but when you're reading the Christmas story and it has just that verbiage, and you just, it emotionally stirs you. Like, I think great art connects you to the past. It looks to the future, but it stirs something within you that's just like explodes with emotion. And so then you're connected immediately in a way that our intellect can't. That's what great art should do. It should stir you on the inside in an emotional way that just, it kind of explodes and connects you in a way that your mind can't.
And that's interesting because you really are speaking to the continuity, because when you explain how RightNow Media is trying to work, you're not just trying to provide teaching, you're trying to stir something up with the teaching that is provided through all the environmental things that to accent what you are communicating. So I guess RightNow Media is the next phase of art.
What's powerful about our current medium and why I'm so passionate about film, video, the current media is there's nothing quite that has taken all the arts and utilized them. You have to write scripts, so you have to be a good writer. You have to know photography. You have to know like set design, art design, what looks good. So you need the visual arts around it. You have to have music. Music is such a powerful connector. So when you look at media, it uses more art and more art forms in one package. And the better we get at it, the more art forms it ends up using. And so that when you see like how things were just and the way that the medium has changed. Now it's into like how is AI going and technology going to change the medium? But before it was like, how do you look and you say that, okay, well, it used to be black and white. Now it's in color. Well, now you can, Star Wars, then you start getting into models and 3D painting and backgrounds, and then you start adding in John Williams' score, and then you start at like everything. But now it's on every TV show. It used to be only in the top. Now it's in every TV show. Now the expectation of what can be created is not, what was made 5 years ago. It's what am I watching right now? So then you start going into AI, and it's like if some guy in his basement can go make a really great animated 5-minute clip, the kingdom, people working for the kingdom need to go figure out how to make a 5-minute clip using AI.
So what have you figured out with using AI in your form?
Well, what I'm trying to do is to push it. In the fact, like, we can't run away from it. A little like we talked about earlier, you can't run away from it. It's coming. It's an inevitability that this is where technology is pushing us. So because of that, where can it be leveraged for kingdom purposes in a way that is redemptive and maybe allows us technologically to do things that we were never able to do before from a cost-benefit standpoint? So, we're looking at animation. How can we use this in different ways to animate and do animation in a cost-effective way? Because animation's always been extremely expensive. Now, have we figured it out? No. But you're working on it. Do I toss it out as like, hey, who's going to be the person that jumps on this and tries to do it? But then what does that mean for, do you need to travel anymore? Or maybe I just use AI to plump you down wherever I want to, or maybe I get my B-roll shots using AI. I'm joking. There's some certain things.
It's not a full joke, because one of the things we've been working on is taking a lot of my teaching and through AI, communicated it in 10 leading world languages. So just from a communication standpoint, being able to speak in the language of the people, and it still be my voice and it still be my content, but you just giving me thoughts like, what can we surround that with that would be relevant to that particular language, that would give it life? This thing, you've kind of stirred my emotions, since we're talking about emotions and art producing that.
But it has to be good.
It has to be quality, yes, high quality. Yeah, so it can't be cheesy. It's got to be the right kind of support mechanism for it. But the emotion, I think you've hit on something that is absolutely critical, and that is people seeing or appreciating the Word of God as art, and not merely as sacred content. Something to emote something in you, because that's what we want in preaching. That's why you use illustrations and analogies. You want to emote something from the content. But I don't know that I've ever thought it as artistic. So to think of it as artistic takes it to a deeper level of emotivity, if that's a word. So
I think there's very little art, and this is going off on a tangent, but I think there's very little art that doesn't elicit emotion.
Right.
I mean, there's art that can capture your mind, but man, when you win is when it hits an emotion.
Yes.
Because not everything can, and nothing will change you more than when your emotions are changed.
Absolutely. Well, you have, and right now, have done a great work and are doing a great work. We have certainly benefited from it. We appreciate what has been done and has supported our ministry as well, and what will be done. And we will try to stay. What I'll do is I'll track you.
Okay.
Because if I track you, I know I'll be on the cutting edge of technology for the purposes for which we are operating. So thank you for being our special guest today.
Thank you.